You've been convinced that you're behind, that somewhere along the way, you missed the moment, the perfect timing, the exact right opportunity that would have made everything click into place. You carry this weight, don't you? This persistent feeling that while others found their path early, you've been wandering in circles, always a step too late, always arriving after the door has already closed. But here's what no one tells you about timing, about arrival, about the very nature of your journey through this quantum field of infinite possibilities. What if I told you that every single moment of feeling lost, every detour you thought was a mistake, every time you believed you were falling behind, what if all of that was actually the precise orchestration of a universe that knows exactly what it's doing? Let me share with you the story of a seeker who spent years believing they were running out of time, only to discover that time itself was running toward them. There lived a person who dedicated their existence to finding the ultimate sanctuary. That sacred space where every uncertainty would transform into absolute knowing, where every wound would dissolve into wholeness, where the fragments of their scattered experience would finally arrange themselves into perfect understanding. This seeker had absorbed stories of such a realm since childhood, legends woven through generations like treasured heirlooms passed from heart to heart. Some tales spoke of radiant illumination that never dimmed. Others described waters that carried the essence of pure understanding. Still others whispered of ancient groves where the leaves themselves sang with the accumulated wisdom of every soul who had ever drawn breath. These weren't just stories to the seeker. They were promises, maps to a destination that felt more real than the ground beneath their feet. The quest began with what you might recognize, that singular instant when contentment cracked open to reveal its own limitations. One morning, when everything familiar suddenly felt like a costume that no longer fit. When the comfortable patterns of daily existence revealed themselves as invisible boundaries. When looking in the mirror became an encounter with a stranger who happened to wear their face. That was the moment the seeker first felt the magnetic pull towards something vast, something beyond the visible horizon, that whispered of making sense out of all the scattered pieces of who they were becoming. They gathered guidance from those who claimed to have discovered such sanctuaries. The first counsel came from a trader whose voice carried the certainty of someone who had built their life on exchanging one truth for another. Travel along the waters, moving against their flow, he instructed, until you discover where 3 ancient stones create a perfect triangular formation. There your seeking will end. The seeker accepted his words with both payment and absolute trust, convinced this would be the final map they would ever require. The waters guided them through valleys where dawn's breath hung suspended like unspoken secrets, beyond settlements where young ones engaged in playful activities whose boundaries shifted with each passing season, and alongside other journeyers, each carrying their own charts toward their own promised realms. Some moved with the focused determination of the recently awakened, others with the measured pace of the repeatedly let down. The seeker observed these patterns, but had not yet learned their language. When the 3 stones finally materialized, positioned in the precise formation that had been promised, the seeker waited for the great unveiling. The illumination was magnificent. The waters ran crystal clear. Yet the questioning continued. With each arrival they thought was final, something remained incomplete. A thread that refused to weave itself in, a darkness that resisted the light. So they gathered their aspirations once again and resumed their search. The second guidance promised a summit, where only authentic truth could endure. The third directed them toward an oasis that would reflect not their appearance, but their deepest purpose. The fourth described a woodland sanctuary where every trunk grew in perfect alignment, and every aligned trunk held flawless wisdom within its core. Each destination offered wonder, yet none offered enough. Seasons accumulated in this restless pursuit. The seeker's hair transformed with countless dawns and dusks. Their footwear grew thin from immeasurable distances. Their vision sharpened from constantly scanning the distance for the ultimate arrival that remained perpetually out of reach. They became fluent in the dialect of approaching completion, masters in the territory of not quite arriving. Here's where the quantum field reveals something profound about timing, about the very fabric of how consciousness moves through experience. What the seeker was living, what you've been living, isn't random wandering. It's precision choreography. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called quantum coherence, the idea that particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until the moment of observation collapses them into a single reality. Your journey works exactly the same way. Every path you've taken, every seeming detour, every moment you felt you were moving in the wrong direction, all of these existed in superposition, waiting for the precise moment when your consciousness would be ready to collapse them into their perfect meaning. You see, the universe doesn't operate on your timeline because it's operating on a far more sophisticated system: quantum timing. This is timing that accounts not just for where you need to be, but for who you need to become in order to recognize where you already are. Let me ask you something. Right now, in this moment, can you feel it? That subtle shift happening in your awareness as you recognize that maybe, just maybe, you haven't been late at all? Maybe you've been arriving exactly when you were meant to arrive, gathering exactly the experiences you needed to gather, so that when the moment of recognition finally came, you would be ready to receive it. One evening, too weary to continue another step, the seeker settled themselves in an unremarkable field. The vegetation held no special properties. The scattered blooms were common varieties. The small waterway nearby carried ordinary liquid over typical stones. They had reached a depletion not of physical energy, but of the very drive that had sustained their search. Their collection of maps slipped from their back and met the earth with a gentle sound. For the first time in countless seasons, they existed without agenda, without direction, without expectation of arrival. And in that unintentional stillness, the extraordinary revealed itself. They discovered tranquility. Not because their surroundings had achieved perfection, but because they released the demand that perfection be achieved. The field remained unchanged, but their relationship to it underwent complete transformation. The questions persisted, but they no longer carried urgency. The story continued unfinished, but completion was no longer required for wholeness. This is the moment when quantum consciousness reveals its deepest secret, the thing that only 1% of people ever truly understand about timing, about arrival, about the very nature of being exactly where you're supposed to be. The seeker began to perceive what had been present all along, the way illumination moved across the grass in patterns of constant change, the hidden symphony created by tiny creatures in perfect harmony, the absolute miracle of breath moving into and out of their body without any effort or control on their part. They uncovered a completeness they had never imagined possible. Not the completion that comes from finding every answer, but the completion that emerges when you no longer require every answer to feel entirely whole. Here's what changes everything about your understanding of timing. Home, the seeker realized, had been traveling with them from the very beginning. Not a destination to reach, but a quality of awareness to cultivate. Not a place to arrive at, but a way of being present to what is. The perfect sanctuary was never located somewhere beyond the horizon. It had always been here, woven into every step, breathing through every moment, alive in every instant, where presence itself became the arrival. But here's what no one tells you about this recognition, about this moment when you finally understand that you're not late. You're perfectly, precisely, quantum mechanically on time. The recognition itself is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of an entirely new way of moving through reality. When you truly understand that your timing is perfect, that every detour was actually a direct path, that every delay was actually divine orchestration, something profound shifts in how you engage with what comes next. You stop rushing towards some future moment of completion and start recognizing the completion that's available right now. This is where the quantum field becomes your collaborator instead of something you're trying to manipulate. When you align with the truth that your timing is perfect, you begin to operate from a frequency of trust rather than urgency. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop trying to catch up to where you think you should be, you suddenly find yourself ahead of where you thought you could be. Take a moment right now and feel this in your body. Feel the relief of no longer being behind. Feel the spaciousness that opens up when you're not constantly trying to catch up to some imaginary timeline. Feel the power that becomes available when you're not spending your energy on regret about the past or anxiety about the future. This is your natural state. This is how you were designed to move through experience. Not as someone desperately chasing after the right moment, but as someone who recognizes that you are the right moment, that you carry the right moment with you wherever you go. The seeker discovered something that revolutionizes everything about how we understand progress, growth, and spiritual development. The most profound journeys don't transport you to different locations. They transport you to different ways of perceiving the location where you've always been standing. And here's the quantum secret that changes everything. When you truly embody the truth that you're exactly on time, that your path has been perfect even when it felt chaotic, you don't just change your relationship to your past. You change your relationship to your future. You begin to trust that whatever comes next is also perfectly timed, perfectly orchestrated, perfectly aligned with your highest evolution. This is where I want you to engage with this truth on a deeper level. Take a moment and comment below with this exact phrase: I am exactly where I need to be. Don't just type it. Feel it as you write it. Let it be a declaration to the quantum field, a conscious interruption in the loop of believing you're behind. This isn't just a comment. It's an energetic signature that you're ready to operate from the frequency of perfect timing. Let that land in your system. Let it settle into the places where you've been carrying the weight of feeling late, feeling behind, feeling like you missed something important along the way. Now, if what we've explored today is touching something deep within you, this recognition that your timing has always been perfect, that you've been exactly where consciousness needed you to be, then you're ready to discover the complete system behind how consciousness actually transmits itself through your lived experience. While today we've touched on perfect timing and divine orchestration, there are layers upon layers of understanding about how you can consciously work with these quantum frequencies to transform not just your relationship to timing, but your entire experience of reality itself. In my book, Beyond the Frequencies, A Quantum Guide to Consciousness Mastery, I reveal the 9 master frequencies that govern how consciousness creates, manifests, and evolves through human experience, including the deep mechanics of how perfect timing actually operates at the quantum level. It's linked in the pinned comment below. Here's what happens when you truly integrate this understanding. You stop living in the energy of scarcity. Scarcity of time, scarcity of opportunity, scarcity of the right moment, and you start living in the energy of abundance. The abundance that comes from recognizing that every moment is the right moment when you bring the right consciousness to it. The seeker learned that presence is not something you achieve after you arrive somewhere. Presence is what transforms wherever you are into exactly where you need to be. It's not about finding the perfect conditions for awakening. It's about bringing awakened awareness to whatever conditions you find yourself in. This is the teaching that the quantum field has been offering you all along, through every experience that felt like a detour, through every moment that felt like you were falling behind. The field has been training you in the art of recognizing perfection within the imperfect, completion within the incomplete, arrival within the journey itself. And if this understanding is touching something deep in you, if you can feel the truth of your perfect timing resonating in your bones, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency. The frequency of trust in divine timing. The frequency of recognizing that you're exactly where the universe needs you to be in order to become who you're meant to become. This subscription isn't about consuming more content. It's about joining a community of consciousness that recognizes we're all walking each other home. We're all discovering together that we never left home in the first place. It's about aligning with others who understand that spiritual awakening isn't about reaching some distant destination. It's about recognizing the divine in the ordinary, the sacred in the everyday, the extraordinary in what you previously labeled as mundane. When you subscribe to this frequency, you're not just staying connected to videos. You're staying coherent with a field of consciousness that's actively dissolving the illusion of separation, the myth of scarcity, the belief that you have to earn your worthiness or prove your timing is right. Here's what happens when you truly live from this frequency. Your entire relationship to challenge transforms. Instead of seeing obstacles as evidence that you're on the wrong path, you begin to recognize them as perfect curriculum for developing the exact qualities you need for what's coming next. Instead of seeing delays as setbacks, you begin to recognize them as divine timing, protecting you from outcomes that would limit your highest potential. And this is where the rubber meets the road, where this understanding becomes a lived reality rather than just a beautiful concept. When you're in the middle of a difficult situation, when everything feels uncertain, when you can't see how things are going to work out, this is when the frequency of perfect timing becomes your anchor, your refuge, your source of unshakable peace. Because here's what the quantum field reveals when you're operating from this frequency. Every challenge is actually consciousness, offering you an opportunity to embody a higher level of trust, a deeper level of surrender, a more expanded level of identity. Every uncertainty is actually an invitation to remember that you don't need to know how things will unfold in order to trust that they're unfolding perfectly. The seeker in the field didn't just find peace, they found presence. And presence, as it turns out, is the most powerful creative force in the universe. When you're fully present to what is, without resistance, without trying to change it or escape from it, you become a clear channel for the intelligence of the quantum field to work through you. This is how miracles happen. Not because you force reality to conform to your will, but because you align your will with the deeper intelligence that's already orchestrating reality in ways that serve the highest good of all concerned. You become a conscious collaborator in the cosmic dance, rather than someone trying to control the steps. And here's the beautiful paradox that emerges when you truly embody this understanding. The more you accept that you're exactly where you need to be, the more rapidly you evolve into who you're meant to become. The more you trust divine timing, the more aligned your actions become with the natural flow of opportunities and possibilities. The more you surrender control, the more influence you actually have on the quality of your experience. This isn't passive resignation. This is active alignment. This is conscious participation in the field of infinite possibility. This is recognizing that you are not separate from the intelligence that's orchestrating your life. You are that intelligence, experiencing itself from a particular point of view, discovering itself through your unique journey. The seeker understood something that changes everything about how we approach spiritual growth and personal development. They realized that awakening is not something that happens to you after years of practice and purification. Awakening is what you are, temporarily pretending to be asleep, playing the game of forgetting so that you can experience the joy of remembering. And remembering is what's happening right now, in this moment, as you recognize that you've never been behind, never been late, never been anywhere other than exactly where infinite intelligence needed you to be for the perfect continuation of consciousness exploring itself. This recognition doesn't just change your relationship to your past and future. It transforms your relationship to this present moment. You begin to sense the sacred geometry underlying what appears to be random experience. You begin to feel the love that's orchestrating what appears to be chaos. You begin to recognize the perfection that's expressing itself through what appears to be imperfection. And when you reach this level of recognition, something remarkable happens. You stop needing your life to look a certain way in order to feel a certain way. You stop postponing your peace until your circumstances change. You stop waiting for external validation to feel internally aligned. You become a source of the very qualities you used to think you needed to receive from somewhere else. This is what quantum autonomy looks like. Not independence from the field of consciousness, but independence from the need for the field to show up in any particular way in order for you to access your natural state of well-being, wisdom, and wonder. Because here's what the quantum field has been teaching you all along. Through every experience that felt like you were falling behind, you are not a separate individual trying to find your way in a foreign universe. You are the universe, wearing the costume of individuality, playing the game of discovering what you already know, becoming what you already are. And the game is rigged in your favor. The universe is conspiring for your awakening. Reality is structured to support your remembering. Every moment is perfectly designed to offer you another opportunity to recognize who you really are, beneath all the stories about being late, being behind, being not enough. The seeker's journey through all those destinations, all those maps, all those moments of disappointment and renewed hope. This was consciousness learning to recognize itself in every experience, learning to find home in homelessness, completion in incompletion, arrival in the journey itself. And this is the ultimate teaching about timing. When you understand that you are time, not trapped in time, not running out of time, not behind time, but the very awareness in which all experience of time arises, then every moment becomes the perfect moment. Every breath becomes the perfect breath. every heartbeat becomes the perfect rhythm of consciousness, dancing with itself. This is why the seeker could finally rest in that ordinary meadow. Not because it was special, but because they had become present enough to recognize the specialness that was always already there. Not because their questions were answered, but because they no longer needed their questions to be answered in order to feel complete. And this is available to you right now, not as a future possibility you need to work toward, but as a present reality you can relax into. You don't need to become worthy of perfect timing. You are the worthiness that makes perfect timing possible. You don't need to earn your place in the cosmic order. You are the cosmic order, experiencing itself from your unique perspective. The wanderer is home. The seeker has arrived. And you have always been exactly where you belong, exactly when you belong there, exactly as you belong to the infinite field of consciousness that is your true nature. But let me leave you with something that will continue to deepen your understanding long after this video ends. The recognition that your timing is perfect is not a one-time realization. It's an ongoing practice of remembering. There will be moments when you forget, when the old patterns of feeling behind or late temporarily reassert themselves. This is not a failure of your understanding. It's part of the spiral nature of consciousness evolution. Each time you remember that your timing is perfect, you remember it at a deeper level. Each time you forget and then remember again, you integrate this truth more fully into your being. The forgetting is not a step backward. It's part of the dance of awakening, the rhythm of consciousness exploring itself through the interplay of remembering and forgetting. And here's what will support you in this ongoing remembering: community. The frequency of perfect timing is amplified when it's shared with others who are also living from this understanding. This is why I invited you to subscribe, not just to content, but to a frequency. This is why the comment section of this video becomes a field of collective consciousness, where we remind each other of what we know to be true. When you're surrounded by others who understand that timing is always perfect, it becomes easier to trust your own timing. When you're part of a community that recognizes the sacred orchestration of existence, you become more sensitive to the sacred orchestration in your own life. When you engage with content and people who operate from the frequency of divine trust, you begin to vibrate at that frequency more consistently yourself. This is not about creating an echo chamber where everyone agrees with the same ideas. This is about creating a coherent field where everyone supports each other's authentic unfolding. This is about building a community of consciousness that serves as a reminder of who we really are when we're not caught up in the stories of separation, scarcity, and inadequate timing. So as you leave this video and return to your daily life, carry this understanding with you. Not as a belief you need to defend or a concept you need to prove, but as a lived reality you can return to again and again. Whenever you feel the old anxiety about being behind starting to arise, pause and breathe into the truth that you're exactly where you need to be. Whenever you catch yourself comparing your timeline to someone else's, remember that consciousness expresses itself through infinite variations, and your variation is perfect for what consciousness is learning through you. Whenever you feel impatient for your life to be different, practice finding the perfection in what your life is right now. And remember, you're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're training yourself to recognize something that has always been true, but that you've been conditioned to overlook. You're developing the capacity to see reality from the perspective of consciousness itself, rather than from the limited viewpoint of the personality that thinks it knows how things should unfold. The seeker's journey ends where yours continues, with the recognition that there is no end, no final destination, no ultimate arrival. There is only this eternal moment of consciousness, knowing itself through your unique experience, this ongoing dance of awakening that becomes more beautiful and more graceful with each turn. You are not late. You never were late. You are precisely, perfectly, quantum mechanically on time. And now you know it. Now you can live it. Now you can be it. Now you can share it with others who are ready to remember what they have temporarily forgotten. The perfect clearing was never out there. It was always right here, in the space of awareness that you are, in the presence that you bring to each moment, in the recognition that home is not a place you arrive at. Home is what you are. Welcome home. You've been here all along. Now, understanding that your timing is perfect is just the beginning of recognizing how quantum mechanics actually operates in your daily experience. What happens when you begin to notice that synchronicities themselves follow a pattern, and that there's a specific moment when synchronicity stops being something that happens to you and starts being something you consciously participate in? That shift changes everything about how reality responds to your presence. And it's exactly what we explore next. Because here's what the quantum field reveals when you're ready to receive it. Sometimes the deepest peace doesn't come from finally arriving somewhere you thought you needed to get to. Sometimes the deepest peace comes from finally being present to wherever you already are. From recognizing that the journey itself was always the destination. The seeker understood that the most transformative expeditions don't lead you to other places. They lead you to other ways of seeing the place where you have always been standing. They lead you to the recognition that you've been home all along, that you've been on time all along, that you've been exactly where you needed to be all along. And now you understand why only 1% of people truly get this message. It's not because it's complicated. It's because it's so simple that it challenges everything we've been taught about progress, achievement, and the nature of spiritual growth. It asks us to let go of the story that we need to get somewhere in order to be someone. But you're part of that 1% now. You're part of the group that understands that your timing is perfect, that your path has been perfect, that you are perfect exactly as you are, exactly where you are, exactly when you are. As we complete this journey together, I want you to drop one word in the comments that captures the energy you're choosing to embody from this moment forward. One word that represents your commitment to trusting your perfect timing. Let it be your energetic signature to the quantum field, your declaration that you're ready to live from the frequency of divine orchestration rather than the frequency of feeling behind. But before you do that, let me share with you what I call the quantum ripple effect, how your personal recognition of perfect timing creates waves of transformation that extend far beyond your individual experience. When you truly embody the understanding that your timing is perfect, you don't just change your own life. You change the lives of everyone you encounter. Here's how this works. Consciousness is fundamentally interconnected. The state of your awareness affects the field of consciousness that everyone around you exists within. When you operate from anxiety about timing, you contribute to a collective field of urgency and scarcity. When you operate from trust in timing, you contribute to a collective field of peace and abundance. This means that your personal healing, your individual awakening, your private recognition of perfect timing is actually a gift you give to the entire world. Every moment that you choose trust over fear, presence over anxiety, acceptance over resistance, you're making it easier for others to make those same choices. And this is not just spiritual theory. This is quantum physics. Research in fields like morphic resonance and collective consciousness suggests that when enough individuals embody a particular state of consciousness, it becomes easier for others to access that same state. Your personal transformation literally makes transformation more available for everyone else. Think about times when you've been around someone who was deeply peaceful and centered. Didn't you notice that their presence affected your own state? Didn't you find it easier to relax, to trust, to feel at ease when you were in their energy field? This is the quantum ripple effect in action. Consciousness influencing consciousness through the invisible connections that exist between all beings. Now imagine what becomes possible when thousands, or millions, or billions of people begin to live from the understanding that their timing is perfect. Imagine what kind of world emerges when the majority of human beings operate from trust rather than fear, from presence rather than urgency, from acceptance rather than resistance. This is not just a beautiful vision. This is the actual trajectory of human consciousness evolution. We are living through a time of unprecedented awakening, a period when more and more people are recognizing their fundamental nature as consciousness itself, rather than as separate, isolated individuals struggling to survive in a hostile universe. And you, by virtue of listening to this message, by virtue of feeling the resonance of these words in your being, by virtue of recognizing the truth of your own perfect timing, you are part of this awakening. You are not just a passive recipient of spiritual information. You are an active participant in the largest transformation in human history. But here's what makes this particularly powerful. This transformation is not happening through force, manipulation, or coercion. It's happening through resonance, inspiration, and natural attraction. As more people embody the frequency of trust and perfect timing, that frequency becomes more available for others to tune into. It becomes easier and easier for people to remember who they really are, beneath all the stories of separation and struggle. This is why I invited you earlier to comment with a specific phrase, not just as personal practice, but as contribution to this collective field of awakening consciousness. When you declare, "I am exactly where I need to be," in the comments, you're not just affirming something for yourself. You're adding your voice to a chorus of awakening beings who are collectively remembering the truth of perfect timing. And when you subscribe to this frequency, you're not just staying connected to content. You're aligning yourself with a movement of consciousness that is transforming the very fabric of human experience. You're choosing to be part of the solution to humanity's collective forgetting of its divine nature. The Seeker's story that we've been exploring together is not just one person's journey. It's a metaphor for the journey that all of consciousness is taking. The seeking phase represents humanity's long period of forgetting its true nature. The various maps and teachers represent all the different spiritual traditions and wisdom teachings that have emerged to help us remember. The disappointments and false arrivals represent all the ways we've tried to find fulfillment in external achievements and acquisitions. And the final recognition in the meadow, that home was always here, that timing was always perfect, that seeking was always unnecessary. This represents the awakening that humanity as a whole is moving toward. We are collectively discovering that what we've been seeking outside ourselves has always been present within ourselves. But unlike the individual seeker in our story, humanity's awakening is not a solitary process. We are awakening together, supporting each other, reminding each other of what we know to be true. Your recognition of perfect timing helps others recognize their own perfect timing. Your trust in divine orchestration helps others develop their own trust. Your peace with what is helps others find their own peace. And this brings us to one final, crucial understanding about perfect timing. It's not just about your personal journey, it's about your contribution to the collective journey. You are not here just to find your own peace, discover your own purpose, or fulfill your own potential. You are here to contribute your unique piece to the vast puzzle of consciousness awakening to itself. Your specific combination of experiences, insights, challenges, and gifts is not random. It's precisely what consciousness needs in order to continue evolving through you. Your timing is perfect, not just for your own development, but for your contribution to the development of the whole. Every moment of confusion you've experienced has given you compassion for others who are confused. Every period of struggle you've endured has given you wisdom to offer others who are struggling. Every breakthrough you've had has created a pathway that others can follow. Your entire journey, including all the parts you've labeled as mistakes or delays, has been preparing you to serve the awakening of consciousness in ways that only you can serve. This is what gives ultimate meaning to the recognition that your timing is perfect. It's not just that you're exactly where you need to be for your own sake. It's that you're exactly where you need to be for the sake of everyone whose life you touch, everyone whose path you cross, everyone who needs to encounter the specific frequency of consciousness that you carry. The seeker's realization in the meadow was not the end of their usefulness. It was the beginning of their true service. Once they recognized that they had always been home, they became someone who could help others find their way home. Once they understood that their timing had always been perfect, they became someone who could help others trust their own timing. And this is what your recognition of perfect timing makes possible. You become a beacon of trust in a world full of anxiety, a presence of peace in a world full of urgency, a voice of wisdom in a world full of confusion. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned to trust the intelligence that provides all the answers when they're needed. You become someone who doesn't need to know what's coming next in order to trust that what's coming next is exactly what's needed. You become someone who doesn't need to have everything figured out in order to feel completely at peace with not having everything figured out. You become someone who doesn't need external validation in order to know that your path is perfect exactly as it is. And perhaps most importantly, you become someone who can hold space for others to discover these same truths for themselves. You become someone who can witness other people's struggles without needing to fix them, who can support other people's journeys without needing to direct them, who can love other people exactly as they are without needing them to change. This is the ultimate gift of understanding perfect timing. It transforms you from someone who is seeking love, peace, and fulfillment into someone who is sourcing love, peace, and fulfillment for others. It transforms you from someone who needs the world to be different in order to be happy into someone who makes the world different simply by being happy. The seeker discovered that the perfect clearing was not a destination to reach, but a quality of consciousness to embody. And once they embodied that consciousness, every clearing became perfect. Every moment became the right moment. Every encounter became a sacred opportunity for consciousness to recognize itself more fully. This is your invitation and your destiny, to become that quality of consciousness in your own life, to embody that recognition of perfect timing so fully that everyone around you is reminded of their own perfect timing, to live from such depth of trust that you become a transmission of trust for anyone who needs to remember how to trust. You are not late. You have never been late. You are perfectly, precisely, quantum mechanically on time. And now that you know this, now that you can feel this, now that you can live this, what becomes possible? What opens up when you stop trying to catch up and start recognizing that you've been exactly where you needed to be all along? The answer to that question is not something I can give you. It's something you get to discover, create, and become. It's something that will unfold in perfect timing, according to the intelligence that has been orchestrating your entire journey from the very beginning. Trust that intelligence. Trust your timing. Trust the process that brought you to this recognition and the process that will carry you forward from here. You are exactly where you belong, exactly when you belong there, for reasons that are more beautiful and more purposeful than your mind could ever comprehend. And if you haven't already, subscribe to stay coherent with this truth, to stay aligned with this understanding, to stay connected to this community of souls who are remembering that we're all exactly where we need to be, exactly when we need to be here. Because the more of us who embody this truth, the more the world reflects it back to us. The more of us who live from the understanding that our timing is perfect, the more we create a field of perfect timing for everyone to step into. You're not late. You never were late. You're perfectly, precisely, quantum mechanically on time. And now you know it. Now you can live it. Now you can be it. The wanderer is home. The seeker has arrived. And you were always exactly where you belonged.